everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here, as always, with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, Pete Wright. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
How are you this week?
I'm doing good.
Yeah? You feeling good?
Yeah. How about you?
No, I'm good. Today is as we record this, it's an in-service day, so I am home recording. My kids are here, and that means that in the middle of working, there will be some hooky played. And
yes.
that is the best part of my day, week, month, when I get to play weekday hooky with my kids.
That's right. That's nice.
I think we're going to go see this movie, The Walk. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
It's a true story about the guy who illegally strung the wire between the World Trade Center towers in New York to walk across it.
Oh.
And it is. I heard this wonderful interview with Robert Zemeckis, the director and the president of Sony Studios, who financed it, and they were just talking about how they made this movie to be an old school action adventure for ages 8 to 80, that they really want everybody to enjoy this. It's something that is really, it's PG. It seems so rare that we get a real adventure that's PG anymore.
That's right.
And so I am really excited to take everybody to it. And so we're going to see it. It's IMAX 3D, which they really went all out to give you the sense of depth and height of the World Trade Center.
Wow.
And so it should be really quite a ride. So I'm very excited to play hooky and go see that movie today.
That is fun.
Yes. Yes.
Good times.
Yes.
Good times with the kiddos. Great
times. Love in-service days. More of those.
Well, and you know what they get to do is they don't have to study.
That's right.
So the last few weeks we've been concentrating so much on succeeding at school, you actually get a day off.
That's right. That's exactly right. I love that. That's my favorite. Right. So we're talking about finding balance between focus, energy, and time today. And this is always a favorite conversation to revisit. We've got some great tips and follow-up from past episodes. And so we are going to get to that in just a moment. But first, you need to head over to TakeControlADHD.com. You can listen to the show right there on the website. You can subscribe. You can join our mailing list to make sure you don't miss a single episode, and connect with us on Twitter and Facebook at Take Control ADHD. And of course, you can call us. Leave us a voicemail at 503-664-4ADD. 503-664-4ADD. You can get your voice and your thoughts on the show. We would love to hear from you. If you've got any questions, give us a call. We'll get them on the show. Thank you so much to those of you who have called. We love hearing from you. Okay, there you go.
There you go.
Our preamble is over. Where do we go from there? First, let's do some follow-up, huh?
Well, we're going to do, some follow-up, because we did get a phone call, and we have some additional tips to share with people for studying and specifically reading when you have a lot to read. And so this person left a message, and I thought that the first suggestion was really funny, because she was even surprised that we didn't mention Evernote.
Well, I'm going to just say in my defense, Evernote is always there in the back of my mind.
I know.
But
Mine
it's
too.
because I talk about it so much on other episodes that I feel like maybe it needed a break.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a break, and I'll explain a little bit about how she uses it. Okay. How about that?
Excellent.
Okay. All right. So the way that she uses Evernote for reading is that she would have a new note for each week. And under that note, she would develop a to-do list for all of the different reading assignments. And then she would basically portion out each day, like how much reading she was going to do when, and be able to kind of check it off as she was going. And you can put your PDFs, of course, and everything into Evernote, as we know. So everything was all in that one note, and that was really efficient for her. And I thought, well, you know what? We need to bring that up.
Yes, it is very useful. And, I just want to add on to that. One of the coolest things you can do that we could never do when we were studying back in the day, to share your notes. If you're using your notes in Evernote, you can just click on the little sharing button and grab a public link. And suddenly your note page becomes a web page that you can just email to people. You can email a link, and all of your notes are there, and all of your... So it's a great way to share notes. It's a great way to share status updates on team projects. Create a note, make it a shared note, and suddenly you have just kind of an easy way to create a web page very quickly. So
that's a great idea.
Handy.
Yeah, that shared feature, definitely.
Yeah.
The second tip that she had was Voice Stream Reader. Have you heard of it?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I do. I love it.
Okay, so I haven't heard of it, or I haven't used it, so you may be able to kind of chime in more on this. But what she was saying is that this will read aloud PDFs and reading material that you have. So for her, it was really convenient to be able to listen as she's driving in her commute, or on her commute, in her commute, whatever you're doing, on a car, in a car, wherever you are, on a bus. But having that audio, feature. So have you used it before? Or?
I have, and I use it, because when I was spending a lot more time in the car, I would love it.
So you're in the car, not on the car.
Yeah, I was on the car. Yes, I would be on the car, on anybody's car. Actually, it doesn't really matter.
That's right.
So I was in the car, and I would hook up my phone to the speakers, and I would just say, "Here, read this thing to me," because I'm so used to audiobooks and podcasts. It's just a very natural kind of extension of it. I don't spend as much time in the car as I did right now, and so I haven't been using it as much. But to be able to just throw anything at it that is written and have it read to you is really a stellar feature.
Awesome. So can we? Well, we can, right? We can put those in the show notes.
Yeah. We'll post a link to those apps in the notes.
And then the last tip she had was using an interval timer, and it was sort of kind of like a game is how I interpreted it. Is, you figure out how many pages you need to read and how many minutes it's going to take you to read each page. And then as you get closer to the time frame that you want, like, so if you only want to spend an hour on reading, as you get closer to that time, you start to hear the timer, and it kind of reminds you to read faster. And it kind of just tricks you into kind of staying focused for that moment of time so that you kind of beat the time. So, that's kind of a little strategy that she's used that I can see might help people too. So wanted to share that as well.
I have to add another digital tool to that conversation, because I discovered this week, I don't know why it has only just hit my desk now, because it's been out for a little while. It's an app called Zen Timer, and this is this is for a Mac. So I'm sorry, this is it. I don't know of a Windows alternative to this, but I love desktop timers. Right, I love being able to just set a timer, and I'm a fan of Pomodoro, and I just love the interval timing kind of thing. And Zen Timer lets you set a timer on your desktop, and what it does is it's a tree. And the tree starts at a sapling. You set the timer, and then over the course of the duration of the timer that you set, the tree grows and grows and grows to a big full tree. And as you get close to needing to take a break, all the leaves start to fall off the tree. And
that's cool.
And that's how you know you're ready for a break. It is the most chill timer that I've ever seen. It is fantastic. It's all based on like fractal math, and it creates a really beautiful little tree right on your desktop. And
that's great.
I think it is just great.
Well, and I think it's great that there's, options that you can kind of go back and forth between different timers. You can use something like that. You can use a traditional timer. You can use your phone. I mean, there's just different ways to do it, because then that also is going to keep your mind a lot more interested into it and pay attention when the timer goes off. So,
yeah. And, this is cool. This is why, timing is so important in executive functioning, because you have to see the time passing. That's why for your executive, you want to trigger your executive function skill, right? Muscle. You don't use a digital clock. We've talked about that. You want to see the sweep of the second hand and the minute hand around your watch or a clock. Well, the same really is, I think that's why Zen Timer is such a fascinating tool, because you see time passing. You just don't see it as a sweep hand. You actually see a tree growing, and I think that's a really magical sort of thing. So,
I agree. I'm going to check that out.
It is really cool.
Very cool. All right. So now going back to this balance of focus, energy, and time.
Yes.
This actually was a comment that was brought to my attention on the blog post a couple of months ago. And she had written in, and she contacted me after listening to our podcast about hyperfocus. If you remember,
I do,
when we did that. podcast.
Yes.
So that was a few months ago, I believe. And this is what she said, or what she asks. She says, I focus in on one task, but my other jobs just fall apart. I lose track of time when I focus on something, which not always is at the top of my to-do list. Then I feel exhausted to do other things. And if I happen to get interrupted, it is quite difficult for me to get my focus back. Any tips to find this desired balance of focus, energy, and time? So I thought, wow, that is a podcast topic.
Yes. It
right?
Is.
And I responded back to her, and I want to share with our listeners how I responded and give some ideas and just some thoughts around this issue. And I really appreciate that she brings it up. And I appreciate when anybody brings anything up, because I think that if you bring it up, it means that somebody else is thinking about it. And not everybody calls in, not everybody writes in. And so when you do, I just so much appreciate you guys bringing these topics to our attention, because she's not alone. She's not alone in these feelings of frustration, right? I mean, this is just way too common.
Yeah, perennial favorite.
Yeah. So I see a couple of issues here. Hyperfocusing is one issue that she's talking about. And then she's also talking about this managing this balance with energy and time. So my first suggestion to her in this situation is to kind of, and we've talked about this a little bit in the hyperfocus, so I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. But I think my first suggestion is really to evaluate what areas in your life you tend to hyperfocus the most. Because just being aware that this particular task or project is going to potentially take you down that rabbit hole, it's going to be very helpful for you to be a little bit more proactive on how to prepare for it the next time it is scheduled. So instead of just sort of, going into it thinking, oh, I might, really get distracted here or really hyper-focus, it's like really think about what are the things that get you,
your triggers.
What are your triggers? We need to know what those are.
Write them down too.
Write them down. Exactly. Because you might forget, right?
Yeah.
Or you may not be paying attention the next time that, you may forget that this podcast was here and that you listened to us talking about it. And then you start hyper-focusing and you're like, oh man, here I did it again.
It's totally like this is a perfect case for my little back pocket field notes. I always have this page in the back where I can write down behaviors and things like that I just need to notice, because I may not ever look at it again, but the act of writing it down helps me cement that this is a thing I need to be aware of in myself.
Pay attention to it. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So now that we've sort of, we're aware of what certain tasks or projects might take us there, we've got to set up some kind of outside reminder of when it's time to do the transition. Zen timer might be a perfect thing for this, right?
Right.
We want to decide how long you want to work on a particular task, and we want to use that timer to remind you of the time. And so just what you were explaining, once you start seeing the leaves fall off, it's time to start to transition. And you can kind of play around with the time frame. If you're working for 1 hour, set the timer for 30 minutes to just sort of notify you, kind of like, hey, you're about halfway through. That's kind of that reminder. And then again at 15 minutes, okay, start to wrap up, because the hour's almost done. And then at the top of the hour, it's time to move on. So it's sort of just reminding you that I've given myself an hour and I've put these reminders in here to alert me to pay attention that the time is almost up. Now we did,
and I would just add in there, working for an hour, I could never do that. Like I would get really distracted at every time the timer went off.
Right.
And so that's why I got to set them for shorter sprints in my work. Like if I were to set a timer for an hour, I would actually end up setting it for 20 minutes and then take a break when that alarm went off the first time. I just think there is so much value in clearing your head for 2 minutes, even if it's just 2 minutes. Just stand up and walk around and stretch. Put the hands above the head. Give yourself a good stretch, and give yourself the freedom to walk around for a minute.
And it definitely depends on what it is that you're working on too. I mean, one of our examples last week with the reading was to only read for 10 minutes, read for 10 minutes, take a minute. So definitely I agree that the time, there's no set time here that it just depends on the situation and what you're working on. So absolutely do what you need to do. The other thing that we mentioned before that I think is still really important to highlight is to have somebody help you with this transition. If you know transitions are hard for you, don't try going in alone. Really try to get that extra support. We've mentioned this. It's a lot harder to say no to someone than it is to throw your phone across the room and say, no, thank you, timer. I'm not listening.
Fie on you.
Yeah.
I do not acknowledge you today.
Yeah. You're not alive to me right now. Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's having somebody support you that, okay, this is going to be a difficult transition and I really need your help. So, enlisting that person to help you, I think can really help. And then, she talked about interruptions because she was saying that it's difficult for her to kind of get her focus back. And so as far as interruption goes, I think that it really kind of goes back to being proactive is what are your interruptions? And is there any way that you can eliminate them at the beginning before you even start a project? So, simple things would be hiring a babysitter if you're going to be working on something in your home, so you can really focus on that. Closing the door, not answering your phone, turning your phone off, turning the email notifications off. Anything that you think is going to help you eliminate those those interruptions. It's not to say they're not going to happen because they very well still could, but if you can just be proactive a little bit at the beginning, that might help at least not make them or not have so many.
Yeah, absolutely.
This last question that she had, I just, again, I just love this. I love it because I just think there's a lot of people that deal with this. How do I find a desired balance of focus, energy, and time? And as I was thinking about this, I came down to kind of three different things: awareness, intention, and perseverance. Awareness, again, I can't reiterate how important it is that you just know where you're more likely to hyperfocus. Being aware of how your ADHD affects you. Pete, you made a really good point of, I know I can't do it for an hour. You know how your brain works. You know what you need to make it work. Mm-hmm. That's really important. You're working with it rather than against it.
Right.
And just really taking back as much control of the situation as you can. In addition to awareness, I think it's about knowing yourself. When do you have the most energy? What time of day works best for you? These are the times that you're going to be most effective. And you want to match your projects with your energy level. It's not going to do you any good to work on a really hard project when you're really tired, or to wait and do it at the end of the day when at the end of the day is your worst time. So it's really just being aware of how you work and when you work best and trying to match those.
And I would just, the only thing I would add, and again, the thing that works for me is sitting down with either a pencil and paper and maybe our daily planner, or just getting on my calendar online and really blocking out all the time I have in the day. Yeah. And that includes when I'm going to take breaks and actually putting in, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to walk around the block here. I'm going to go for a run here. I'm going to do this piece of work here. I'm going to, go to lunch here and make sure that every minute it's going to feel like, or at least it feels like to me, oh my gosh, I'm totally overscheduling. But really what it is I'm just managing my attention, because as soon as I see empty space on my calendar, I will lose attention. Yes. I will not be able to know. I will not know what I'm going to do. If it's take a break here, then I know for the next 15 minutes I am not to think about other stuff. I need to go refresh my coffee. I need to go get something to eat. I need to eat an apple or something. Mm-hmm. But it's not just empty time. It's intended break time. And that is
that exactly is what intention is about. You hit the nail on the head. I think it's I'm a big believer on just setting the intention for your day. What is my intention for the day? And every morning before I even get out of bed, I think about, okay, what kind of day do I want to have today? I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to have a productive day. I'm going to have a happy day, whatever it is that I set that intention. But then I think what you're saying is you take it a step further and you're like, okay, what are the most important things that need to get done today? How am I going to schedule those? Yeah. When am I going to do them? And prioritizing your energy levels around those, putting structures in place. So you're putting your energy levels with what you need to get done, and that's putting structure in place.
Because that calendar, that at the end of that morning kind of scheduling session, or ideally, I do that in my daily planning the night before, so that I know when I wake up that calendar is the visual reminder of the balance between focus, energy, and time.
Right. Absolutely.
And it allows me to be much more resilient, because if I have something that I just don't finish on time, then I know what I have to move, right? I know the things that I have to move it throughout my day in order to be able to make up time. I also know that where I'm going to need to be able to say no to other things, because I can't, anything else that comes in is going to be a distraction. So I'm going to have to say, look, I don't have time to do this for you. I don't have time to take care of this because of these other things. I will have time later, but it allows me to manage my intention for each individual day with greater, like you say, intention. I think that's really valuable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then the last thing I want to say is just perseverance. Don't let one bad day ruin your long-term efforts. And maybe it's not even one bad day. Maybe it's you just had a really bad week. Don't let that ruin your efforts, because too many times I see people are so hard on themselves and they think, okay, well, gosh, I can't do this, or they just, they replay these tapes in their heads about how it didn't work before. And I'm just not a productive person. I can't do it. And that's not true. You can do it. You are capable. You just have to pay attention again, go back to awareness, go back to what your intention is, go to the tools that you have, and, just be kind to yourself. You get to start over tomorrow. Tomorrow isn't determined by what you did yesterday. So, just really encouraging people to not give up on that.
Absolutely. I love it. I love this topic. And I feel like I hope people don't hear this and think, well, I've heard these concepts before, because I think this is one of the most important muscles that you can develop if you're living with ADHD. It is incredibly important. And I sometimes, I maybe take it for granted because I've surrounded myself with so many redundant tools that allow me to kind of do this. It is incredibly valuable to master this and to feel like you're in control of your time, because that will allow you to be in control of your intention and your energy and your focus to a much greater degree. It'll never be perfect.
No.
But it'll certainly
feel better.
Yeah.
That's
I love it. All right. I think that's it. Are we good?
That's
awesome.
Good.
Hey, thank you everybody for downloading and listening to the show. And you know what? We've said this before, but it really helps us if you head over to iTunes. If you're an iTunes listener and you log into your account there, you go to the Taking Control, the ADHD podcast page on iTunes, in the iTunes directory, and you leave us a positive review. It helps other people discover the show. It's incredibly motivating for us. Frankly, it's just a nice, all-around nice thing to do. So we appreciate your time. I know it's not the easiest process in iTunes to do it, which makes it all the more valuable that you take your time and intention and focus to be aware of this show and help us find new listeners. So thank you very much, as ever. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.